And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Translators on Air. My name is Dmitry Korniukhov. I'm your host. Unfortunately, my co-host Elena Tereshenko is stuck in a traffic jam, and she won't be able to join us, not now at least. But we hope to make it in the next 15 minutes or so. But we already have our guest today. It's Natalie Soper, French and Spanish translator into English, and she specializes in business, art, and tourism. And Natalie actually worked as a project manager in a training company, and this is going to be a topic of our discussion today. We'll talk about being a project manager versus being a freelance translator, because Natalie also is a freelance translator, and she started her career back in 2015. But before we jump to our conversation, I'd like to make a couple announcements. As always, I'd like to remind that the second season of Translators on Air has been sponsored by our friends at Smercat. Smercat develops translation technology for freelance translators, and they offer it absolutely for free. They have CAT tool for translators, and if you want to check it out, just click the green button below this video if you're watching this live, or if you're watching this in the recording on YouTube or SoundCloud or iTunes, just click the first link in the description of the video. And I'd like to welcome all our viewers today. We have quite a few people here. Hello, Alexandra. Hello, Paige. Hello, Hagen, Crystal, Hannah, Gracie, Joanna. Thank you so much for watching us live. If you guys have any questions during our conversation, there is an orange button below this video stream that says ask a question, suggest a topic. You can push that button and ask a question, and Natalie and I, and hopefully Yelena, when she joins us, we'll be happy to discuss the topic and answer your questions. Or you can use the chat window on the right-hand side and just say hi, or for example, you can say what was the last thing you have translated today or yesterday. I'll start with myself. I translated a video game about zombie Vikings. It was a lot of fun. Natalie, what was the last thing you've translated?
Today I worked on a newsletter for an energy company, and also this sort of essay abstract that was about music interpretation. So two very different topics. Yeah, it's good. It was nice.
I think I saw a tweet. Was it you who you were translating something about sonnet, or you were doing a research on music, something like that?
About flute solos. It was.
Flutes. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
I love a project like this when you get to research and you get to listen to something or watch videos.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's a fun part of our profession. So, Natalie, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, about your experience, how you ended up working in this project management position, and etc.?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. Thanks for having me, Dimitri, and Elena once she's eventually here. So, as you said, I'm a French and Spanish to English translator. I live in Plymouth in the UK, which is right at the bottom of the map on the south coast of England. And I started freelance translating in 2015. And before that, I was, we didn't call ourselves project managers in this training company, we called ourselves learning services coordinators. So that was my job title. But the principle was pretty much the same. It was liaising between a freelance trainer and the end client to try and create these training events for quite big companies all over the world. Mm-hmm. So the contracts I worked on included Rolls-Royce and AXA. So I got to use my French, which is good. So I managed to build up my business experience and my sort of HR and corporate experience, which I now use in translating as well, which is quite useful.
And how did you end up working in this company?
Well, it wasn't sort of an intentional thing. I'd finished my master's in translation studies in 2012, and I was working in a language school after that, and I wanted to travel around South America, so I was just saving up. So in 2013, I went to South America for a couple of months, and then when I got home, I was just sort of at a bit of a loose end. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to translate, but in Plymouth, there aren't really many opportunities for translation. There's like one agency, and I didn't think that freelancing at the time was for me. It just seemed like an impossible thing to do. So I thought I'm going to have to move to London or something if I want to translate, which again, I didn't want to do because London's really expensive. So I thought I'll just build up some experience in something else. And luckily this job came along where I could still use my languages. and B, quite local still. So yeah, and it was a temporary job at first. I stayed there longer than I intended, about a couple of years in the end, but yeah, it was okay in the end.
And what are the main things you learned at this job?
Well, the main things I learned, apart from about the sort of businessy side, was more about good customer service and client relations, which I think comes into play quite a lot now that I'm running my own business and being a freelancer. Just about sort of managing those relationships and things not to do, just based on people that I've encountered in my previous work, who I thought I don't really want to encounter that kind of person again, or be like that kind of person when I'm finally freelancing myself.
What are the main lessons of about customer service that you learned in this position? What do customers like? How you serve a customer properly?
Well, I guess the main, well, not that the customer's always right, that's sometimes not true. Just that you always have to sort of find solutions for the customer, I guess. And unfortunately, when it's an agency, it sometimes means that you are torn between pleasing the customer, but then annoying the freelancer maybe, or sometimes, yeah, you're torn, if that makes sense. So yeah, the lessons I learned were just how to manage that kind of conflicts, try and find a solution where everyone's happy. Yeah, and sort of, yeah, there were some good and bad moments in terms of what not
Good
to
and
do.
bad moments.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, what are the good moments then?
Well, the good moments are when everything goes nicely, when the end client's happy, the freelancer's happy. And it's always the same freelancers that always go sort of above and beyond their call of duty, really. And you're always really pleased to hear from them. You could just have a normal chat with them like they were just another of your colleagues. It didn't feel like a very, serious business relationship. So those are always quite nice ones, because at the end of the day, freelancers and the agency project manager are both working to please their clients. So. So I'm just gonna have some water. I've had a cold for the past couple of days.
Oh, yeah, you better stay hydrated. I always keep a mug of water somewhere around my table when I'm working. I hope you get better soon. I just saw a good question actually in the chat window from Hannah. What do you do as a project manager when the customer isn't right?
Yeah, that's really difficult. I guess explaining is the best way, trying to make them see why something might not be possible if you really, really can't make it possible. Sometimes things are just unrealistic, so you just have to find some sort of middle ground, I think.
And I guess you always have to be diplomatic in your answers.
Yeah, very much so. Not letting anyone's emotions get the better of them. Yeah, just being constructive, really.
Yeah, and I think sometimes clients, they do come around, if you explain them everything slowly and carefully and really make them see your point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the agencies especially, the whole reason the end client is paying you is because they want you to take care of everything. So, and that's something that they don't know about in translation as well as in training. It's something that they can't do themselves in-house. So hopefully they trust your judgment.
So, did you have any experience with translation before finding that job? If so, did you miss translation?
No, actually, I obviously did my master's degree, and I had done a lot of translation research and translation projects as part of that. But no, I hadn't had any other translation experience. I got to translate a bit at the job, some training materials, and because I spoke in French all day on one of the contracts, I got to use my languages. But yeah. Now I'm always learning translation things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing about this profession. I think there is a lot of learning involved, even after you graduate, especially after you graduate, because when you study, it's one thing, and then you actually get to do the job. It's quite different, and you have to learn a lot as you go.
Yeah, definitely. It's a constant learning curve.
And when did you decide to move to the freelance translation?
It was 2014. I was enjoying the job, but I knew it wasn't really what I really wanted to do, and I felt like I wasn't using my degree properly, wasting a lot of money on that degree. So, funny enough, what caused me to actually try the freelancing was my friend died. She was 23 at the time, she was born with something called Pfeiffer syndrome, so she was always going to have quite a low life expectancy. But she was always really positive, and she always said, like, don't worry about the future, just do whatever you want to do, just get on with living your life. So when she did die, I thought, yeah, she's right, I really need to it was a kick up the backside for me. I thought I should try the freelancing if I can't find another job. And then it was Christmas, and I realised I didn't want to go back to work after the Christmas holidays. Excuse me, I just need to blow my nose. God, it's all happening now.
It's okay. Yeah, things happen. After all, it's almost winter, and it's
it's already winter. It's freezing.
Yeah, it's pretty cold here in Toronto too. Yesterday I made a mistake of putting on a very light jacket when I was met my wife after her work. It was so cold.
It's winter really time now.
It's the most tricky part of when it's between winter and autumn, and you don't really know if it's gonna be too cold or you don't know how to dress properly. Yeah. That's the biggest, especially for my wife. It's always a challenge. This emotional kick on the back, as you said, was the thing that motivated you to chase your own dreams and follow your heart, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I handed in my notice straight after Christmas, and just sort of slowly did the transition into becoming a freelancer. I went part-time for a month, so that I had half the time to sort of set things up, but I was still earning, so that helped. I got advice from other translators that I knew. One translator, very distant relation, she was the sister of the HR manager at my partner's workplace. But I thought, you're a translator, talk to me, what do I need to do? So she's really helpful in sort of talking about how to approach agencies, how to sort of present yourself, and sort of using this business experience as a positive spin, because I didn't have much translation experience, just sort of how to present that to you.
And what were the first steps that you took after you quit your previous job and started basically building your own business?
I sort of did a lot of research into what to do, what freelancing entails. I joined Pros, set up a website, did all the sort of boring tax stuff like registering for self-assessment. So yeah, it was quite a sort of slow, sort of step-by-step process. So it didn't feel like such a huge, like, okay, now I'm alone kind of thing. And then, I got help from other translators, as I said. One of them gave me my first job as well, so that was nice.
Oh,
so then
nice.
I gained confidence having done a job, like, oh, I did it, I can do more now. So yeah, it just sort of builds up and up from there once you realise you can do it.
What is the job about?
My first job was a marriage certificate, actually.
Marriage certificate, yeah.
Yeah. She was really good with sort of mentoring me a little bit on what to do. So yeah, that helped a lot build up my confidence.
Nice. Did you build a website or anything like that, or are you just registered on Pros and it was just it for the time being?
Yeah, Pros was first. My website was just a basic WordPress website. It's still pretty basic WordPress website. But I'm always changing it because marketing is not my strong point, so I'm always sort of tweaking it. Just sort of joining these various things, just trying to read as much as I could. I joined the Institute for Translation and Interpreting as well in the UK, so they do little meetups occasionally down in the southwest. So again, it's just nice to have a network of translators that you know close by.
Did you attend a lot of meetups or conferences or something like that?
No, I haven't attended as many as I should, actually. I arranged one myself, and I'll be going to a conference next year. But again, because I live so far from London, there's not much going on down here. It's quite sort of rural, so it's hard to sort of travel to where the excitement is. I have to pick and choose.
Well, at least you're in Europe, so things are pretty
Yeah,
close there. It would be
true.
much harder for me to fly over from Canada to conference,
That's the
and much more expensive.
point. Are there a lot of translator events around Toronto though?
Yeah, there are a lot of events here, and I actually like going to the events that are not so translation related.
Yeah,
Even though I enjoy talking about my profession and meeting fellow translators, it's great fun. But for me, professional, I think it's much more beneficial if I go to events that I can meet potential clients,
yeah,
like developers or game developers or WordPress developers, uh, or people who build other businesses, and I can learn from them, or maybe we can collaborate on something. So
yeah.
these are the kinds of events I prefer to go in. Yeah, I occasionally go to meetups where I just meet other business owners who build businesses in various kinds of fields, from sex shops to selling children books. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
a wide range of products and services, and it's fun to talk to people who are building their businesses from the ground up and share their experience. You can learn a lot there. Yeah. Your first steps were just getting out there, creating a pros account, networking, and later you build a website. What the things that worked best for you when you were just starting out?
What worked best for me? Actually, prose did help me a lot. I know it's a sort of love-hate relationship with a lot of translators on whether
Yeah.
prose is a good or bad thing, you especially. But I found the blue board quite helpful with approaching agencies and seeing which ones were to stay away from or whatever. So once I'd got like a CV and cover letter established, I just sort of went through just hired to a bunch. So that was my strategy. And others have different strategies. And yeah, just I find now that I've joined Facebook groups and Twitter, they're just always sort of little mentions and opportunities just knocking around. Ah, cat.
Yeah, sorry, my cat is showing too much love today. She wants to be on camera, so I'm just gonna show her. Hey, Mindy, say hi to everyone.
Is she better now after her operation?
Yes, she's much better. Yeah, that was amazing. The support of the community that we helped save Mindy is incredible. Yeah, I'm really grateful to all the people.
Yes.
She's uh, she's always up to some mischief though. Yeah, always trying to be naughty. Yeah. So, did you start approaching agencies or direct clients right away, or you were just waiting for the clients to find you or something like that?
I started approaching agencies straight away. My translator friend suggested a couple for me, so I started with them. And then, yeah, by using the blue board and everything else, and the RTI's list as well, I just approached more and more. I actually don't have that many direct clients. So more of my work comes from agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And
How
yeah.
did you approach them at first?
I just send emails with my CV, trying to sort of position myself as I have this other experience of working in theatre as well. I've recently only quit my job there, but it was a part-time job in the theatre, so that's where my arts and culture specialism comes from. So yeah, I guess it was just a sort of sending out an application frenzy at the beginning to see what happened. And luckily, yeah, people came back.
Yeah, that's a lot of people start like that. I've been doing the same thing back in the days when I was working in office actually as a translator. But the things weren't going there very well for the company where I work. We didn't have enough jobs coming in for all the translators in the department. So I think subconsciously I understand that I need to move on, and it's not the best thing to be stuck in the office. And the office was in the basement actually with no direct sunlight. So yeah, so I started freelancing on the side. Sometimes I worked at my office job. I was doing freelance gigs. Again, prose also was the starting point, and I also was sending out a ton of emails to agencies. Many of them were so badly written and were really horrible, but it worked. Some people replied, and it turned into fruitful collaboration that lasted sometimes for years. I don't have those clients anymore because I kept growing and growing, increasing my rates gradually. So I had to kiss my clients goodbye, so to speak. But yeah, the first steps are you just have to put a lot of work into it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, you do have to contact a lot of people to get a sufficient number of responses back.
Yeah. Was it hard for you? Were you disappointed that nobody is replying? Or
yeah, especially when because it was my only job, so I was like, oh god, maybe. And this parent company had said you can come back if you want, if you've got a quiet bit, and I was sorely tempted sometimes, but I thought no, I've got to just focus on the freelancing. So I still get quiet periods now. I'm like panicking a little bit. Like September for me, it just gone. It was quite quiet for me. But now I know not to worry too much about it because it's always this peaks and troughs kind of work pattern. I think a lot of people feel that.
Yeah. How do they call it? Famine or feast or
Feast
something
and
like
famine,
that? Yeah. These are the cycles that every freelancer gets. Not only in translation, basically in any freelance business. I have friends who are photographers or web developers or copywriters, and they all experience the same things. There are some slow moments. That's why you have to put some extra work to retain your clients. And this is where your customer service skills actually can be very helpful. Can you tell us a little bit about? I see Elena. Yeah, Elena is here. I'm going to invite her on screen if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Just give me a second. Elena, welcome back. Elena, I'm inviting you on screen. So we are talking with Natalie here. We talked a little bit.
Hi. I'm so sorry for being late. I just didn't. It was something crazy. It was something I couldn't imagine that it would happen that way. Sorry about that.
There's this theme called life, and it happens to all of us. So okay. We are having a very lovely conversation with Natalie. We talked about her experience working in office as a project manager, and we slowly moved to freelancing and kind of her first steps at freelancing. And the next question that I would like to ask is, Natalie, how did the experience of your office job, project manager job, helped you with your own business in your freelance career?
So as we were just saying, like if you want clients to come back to you, that good customer service really helps. So I think I've learned a lot about, because I know what it's like to be in the shoes of a project manager. I think it's good to have that sort of empathy and understanding of what might be happening at their end. And even though they might be annoying you, infuriating you, it might not be their fault necessarily. They might just be, they might just be the messenger. A decision might have happened sort of further up the line, and they're just the one who has to send the email. So I always make sure that they can ask me questions without me getting mad about it. Because in my previous job, sometimes people get very mad if I ask certain things. And equally, I would like to be able to ask anything to the project manager as well. I think it's really good that if everyone's clear on what is going to be done, on instructions, invoicing, POs, everything, I think that really helps just to get everything running smoothly. It sounds really obvious, but you'd be surprised how it sort of messes up so much.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen this happening too many times. And we all make these mistakes that we don't pay too much attention to customer service and take customers for granted, but customers are really like with extra special treatment. And when you put some extra work into it, then you're trying to be nice, trying to ask questions and be open about communication, it really helps to reinforce good relationship with the client or a project manager who is working for a client, like if you're working with translation agency, for example.
And it was, sorry.
It's an interesting thought that actually when we are working with the translation agencies, project managers are in a way our clients. So good communication with project managers is actually customer service. It's also sort of obvious, but it's the first time I really think about it that way.
No, it gets forgotten quite a lot. And I always see, especially on pros, actually, people who get these outrageous emails about, I want 12,000 words done by for tomorrow for this really peanuts rate, and then people want to send back these really smart ALEC responses back to the project managers. And I know that it's really tempting to send off a snarky email like that, but actually it's not productive at all. And I'm quite thin-skinned. It hurts my feelings when I get a really rude email like that when I was a project manager. So you just got to remember, just trying to do our jobs, aren't we?
I'm usually very lucky with project managers at the agencies I work with. I might have some issues with agencies themselves or agency owners, but not with project managers. The PMs are usually really nice.
Yeah. Maybe they've got experience with the actual customer service side.
Yeah, could be.
There is a very interesting comment from Paige Dygert in the comment box on the right. If you don't mind, I'm going to read it out. I've experienced PMs who don't answer your questions until after you submit the assignment. I think they are waiting to see what will work to their benefit. So they let me turn it in, and then give me the answer. Is there a way to head this off?
It's really weird. I usually ask questions along the way, and if I don't get a response, I'll just remind them, like, do you want me to send it as it is, or do you want me to wait for this to be fixed first? So I'm afraid I haven't had a PM not answer my questions until afterwards. But then I guess it's their problem if they want to have the translation as you sent it. So.
No, maybe these project managers are just have the avalanche of emails. Maybe they missed it a couple of times. I mean, things like this can happen easily, especially when you're working in a translation agency. I remember our project manager when I was working in-house in a translation agency, and what she was doing, it was insane. She was in the middle of everything, communicating with translators in-house, communicating with translators who are freelancers, communicating with management and our boss, CEO, and we have two bosses who had different opinions about how they should run the business. So it was even more complicated. And she was also in charge of communicating with clients. So, and she was all by herself. We had just one manager.
Wow.
So maybe that's the case of your agency page. I don't know. I'm just speculating here, but what I would suggest is probably following up a couple of times, like Natalie says, just sending a reminder that, hey, I have a few questions that haven't been answered yet, and we need to get them answered as soon as possible before we deliver the files, in order to make the end clients happier. And this is because everyone will benefit from it if you have questions and the questions get answered and everything is fixed. So clients won't have any problems and they'll be happier eventually, right?
Definitely, yeah. And it's a really good point actually about the workload thing, because we as well in this agency, we always had a huge workload, and it was the invoicing that got left at the bottom of the pile. Invoicing was just the bane of my life. And we had so many overdue invoices happened all the time, and now I realise, like, again on the blue boards, people will score you 1 out of 5 if your invoice is late.
If you're a couple of days late,
it just gets forgotten. Yeah. So again, if I do get a late invoice, I'll send a gentle reminder, and most times it will get paid pretty quickly with an apology. But having a shouty email doesn't really want to make you move.
Yeah. I totally agree with what you guys are saying, because and Paige has perfectly formulated it, gently persistent. I think it's just the mantra that we all should probably repeat to ourselves from time to time, because I don't think that any project managers ignore our questions on purpose. It's just probably that they are so busy and they have so much on their plates, and unlike us freelancers, they can't really do a lot in terms of how much things they are going to have on their plans. They're not the ones who determine that; it's their bosses who do that, probably. So I think it might be also difficult for them. So
so they have a fixed
following
work
up
schedule as well.
Yeah, following up is a great thing. I think, Dmitry, you have probably read that article by Jason Zook about the art of following up or something like that. I think we should include it in the show notes. I'll find the link to include it in our show notes, because it's a difficult thing. It's a very difficult thing to follow up, either when you are applying to agencies or probably in the situations like the one that Paige described, when you sent a question and no one got back to you. But it can make a ton of difference. So it's a great article. We'll include it in the show notes.
Yeah, I have a system in place. If I'm sending an important email, I always ask to confirm that the safe received. And if it's very important and time sensitive, I schedule a reminder for myself. So in case no one replies to my email, I receive a reminder to follow up. So that way I won't forget about following up, because I also very busy and chasing clients and trying to get them to answer your questions. So it's time consuming. So yeah, I have a plugin installed on my WordPress site where I just create a reminder for myself, and I receive an email in my inbox. So yeah, this helps for me both to stay organized and to follow up regularly.
Yeah, and also even sometimes if you've asked a question or something and the reason the other person hasn't replied is because they haven't had a reply from the end client. But it's good to sometimes say, I'm still waiting on a reply for this, just to check that you haven't forgotten about someone. And in the case of invoicing, sometimes you're just avoiding the messages because you know you need to sign off the invoice, but it hasn't been done yet. So you just start ignoring things and stuff.
Yeah,
it's not cool.
Invoicing can be a pain,
yeah.
And the bigger the companies, the greater the pain is.
Yeah, definitely. And ours was quite a big company, so there were a lot of different coordinators. And you might be talking to one via email, but another person might be dealing with your invoice. And that's why you really need to be clear on instructions and invoicing and stuff, because otherwise all sorts of information gets lost.
There's another great tip from Alexandra Duran, who's saying that when it's something that will make the difference as of how I translate the whole document, it has also worked for me to add the word important or urgent to the subject. And you can also put an exclamation mark or something like that in the subject. Or 3 exclamation marks for that matter.
Or 6 exclamation marks if it's super perfect.
Red.
Must read.
Or just call them as well if it is really urgent.
Or calling, yeah. The art of communication over the phone. I think it's people kind of forgetting about this one.
Yeah, I hate talking on the phone. I avoid it at all costs. But some things, if it's important enough, you kind of have to.
Yeah, if it's something urgent and you need to get things solved, phone is probably the easiest way to get things sorted.
It's happened to me when I think they actually getting my emails. Is there something wrong with my emails? So calling them just sorts it out. So, did you get my email? Oh yeah, you did. Okay.
And you can actually do it even if you are not in the same country with the client. You can just use Skype. Probably, yeah.
I used to use this tool that tracks the opens of the emails. So if I knew I was sending something urgent or something that needs a reply, I could see if the client actually opened my email. It's a bit shady, so I stopped using it. But sometimes it worked. At least I saw that they actually open it and then they choose to ignore it. For some reason, they open it like 10 times and nobody replies. So yeah, it was fun, but just too shady to do this. So I wouldn't recommend doing this. But if you want to, there are a ton of tools for Gmail. I think it's called Banana Tank or something like that. Yeah, if you really want to go
Stalk you.
stalk your clients.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to the next question?
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
What were the main lessons you learned while working as a project manager at a training company?
The main lessons I learned were basically from the characters of people that upset me the most, really. For example, we would get some very sort of needy freelancers. One guy in particular, he would constantly bombard with emails saying, "Why haven't I got more work? Why can't you do more work?" But he actually came to our office one time. He was on his way to a holiday, and he said, "I'm going to drop by the office and talk to you about how you can give me more work." And it was so intense. And that, I think it's good to give your clients a little nudge and to say, "Hi, I'm back. I'm available for whatever." But not every day, because then it does the opposite effect. You don't want to give them work because they're just getting really annoying. So don't be needy. It's a good lesson.
Not only for business, but for life as well.
Yeah,
probably.
Don't be needy. Yeah, that's true. And we would get other freelancers who were sort of quite diva-ish. They'd make quite a lot of demands, which we can do. So, for example, there was a trainer who was in Japan who asked us to ship bookloads of materials over to her for a course, which unfortunately we couldn't do because the airline had a sustainability policy, so we wouldn't have been able to fly them across. And it was really expensive anyway, so I had to be nice and say, "I'm really sorry, but I can't do this for you. But you've got the electronic copy that I sent you, so you can use that." She was furious. She said, "I can't believe you're being so unhelpful." She refused to do the event at all. She just completely sort of lost it. I was so shocked. So you get some really angry characters all of a sudden that are making these demands, and it really sort of ruins your day when you get people like that. This sort of demanding behaviour is, again, you don't want to use them again. And with a big agency, they have lots of other vendors that they call them that they can use, who are a lot more easygoing. You obviously you'd have to be a pushover, but you should at least sort of be civil. Try and be productive and work things out.
Joanna asks, I can understand that this guy you described was intense, but as a general rule, did you enjoy meeting your freelancers?
Yeah, it's just that one guy who was intense. The others were fine. Actually, I didn't meet many of them because our office, because they're freelancers who actually go to the end client and deliver the event, so our office was far away from that. But I really enjoyed hearing from certain freelancers, and they were the ones who would just call to have a chat, see how you were, and then we'd get down to the business bit afterwards. And those are the ones that you'd have at the forefront of your mind when a new event came along, are the ones that you actually have built up a rapport and a relationship with. And in fact, one of them now is one of my direct clients, so it was really good that we stayed in touch. And they're always, when you feel like you've got a really good relationship with them, you don't mind doing a bit more for them, so you end up both happy. So it ends up just being a really good relationship.
I think it's just all about building a positive relationship and a positive image, and just being easygoing and understanding. I think the examples that you've described, I think a lot of people met people like this, both as project managers or as outsourcing freelancers. But I honestly don't understand what drives those people. Because like you said, you're just gonna ruin someone's day. You're just gonna be added to some sort of a blacklist, or at least a mental blacklist that's in someone's hand, and you never get any job, and you just ruin your reputation inside this company, maybe even outside of the company, because people tend to talk to other people, and they tend to share their negative experiences. So if someone really pisses you off, you're probably gonna tell at least 10 other people about this very annoying person, right?
It's true, and it's, I think I've heard before, someone's happy with your service, they'll tell one person, but if they're dissatisfied, they'll tell 10 people. I've seen it in lots of other businesses as well. Like, it goes all over Facebook and it's awful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess that's again a lesson of a customer service and how you should communicate clearly with your customers.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a few questions from our viewers in the question box. I'm just going to read the question by Tracy Peel. Did you use any CAT tools prior to working as a project manager?
No, actually, only what I'd learned in my master's course. We tried out a couple of CAT tools. We tried out Trials, I think 2011 at the time, and Deja Vu. It's a horrible one to use, actually. Didn't like that one. But no, not until I became a freelancer, I bought Trados, and I just sort of taught myself, really. So yeah, that was a whole new world to me. I haven't tried SmartCat, actually. Happy to give it a try.
Yeah, there's a green button below you can click. Shameless self-plug.
Yeah.
Number one.
I put it in there.
Well, at least it's free. I mean, it doesn't hurt if you try it, right? You can always go back to your charges, which you already paid. I think I have tried SmartCat. It's okay. I mean, for a free tool, it's perfect. When you don't have to pay like 700 euros for it. I think it's a great solution especially for those who are just starting out and just want to learn about CAT tools. Yeah, I'm just doing this from my personal experience. I'm not trying to promote SmartCat, although it seems like I might. But yeah, so you've learned Trados at first, and you stuck with it till the same day.
Yeah. Obviously, my one is 2014, so that's how much I'm using it. I haven't actually tried any of this. I make Trados. Actually, I sometimes just don't use a CAT tool if it's quite a creative text, because I find dividing it by sentences sometimes isn't very helpful. So just depends on the document, really. But
do you think in general CAT tools necessary for translators these days?
I think they're useful. I don't think they're like absolutely necessary. Again, it really depends on your specialization and probably your language as well. For French and Spanish, it's not too bad. But yeah, as I said, if you work with quite very creative flowing texts, it's probably very useful. So don't be afraid not to use them. But I think the sort of saving vocabulary things is quite useful. So building up on a dictionary is the bit I like most about Trados.
Yeah, I kind of do the same things with my CAT tool. I use mostly as a dictionary of sorts or a glossary, especially when I work with creative text that has a lot of lore and characters and made up names of different worlds or something like that, or unique races, like when it translating some sort of a adventure game set in medieval times or whatever. This actually helps a lot, especially when you have very complicated names that were made up and they don't exist. Remembering all of it, it's a lot of pain. So I just add them to a glossary, and next time I see them in next segments, I just use my glossary. Yeah, it really helps, and it's good for keeping everything consistent.
Yeah, my experience has been pretty much the same. CAT tools are great for providing consistency and for some not particularly creative texts, like, for example, marketing stories, because and texts with a lot of repetitions like marketing stories, because you don't have to type everything, and it really saves you time. But with creative texts, they are sometimes just get in the way, I would say. And they just don't, from my point of view, it doesn't make much sense to use them. I have an agency who asks us to use a CAT tool for translating things like blog posts and stuff. I don't see much sense in that, because we actually can't use TMs, so translation memories. And from that point of view, it's pretty useless. But the cat tool has a nice interface, so why not use it?
Okay, let's jump to a few other questions that we have here. Hagen asks, do you think it makes sense to apply for PM job right after school, college, or do you consider transition from freelance to PM to be better, concerning your experience?
I think it's probably quite good to start out in a translation company. Obviously, I didn't start in a translation company, but to be in that environment, to see how that whole process works, I think it's probably quite beneficial. I know a lot of translators did work in-house before they decided to go freelance. But I guess it just depends on your own experience and your own situation as well, in terms of your lifestyle. There's so many things come into play as to what works for you. So
I think that working as a PM can provide some sort of stability. And some sort of more or less stable income, because freelancing can be a bit not that stable, not that secure at the beginning. So probably it might be a good.
And also in a company, you have like a manager, so you can always elevate things to them if you're like, I have no idea what to do. So yeah, it's quite useful in that sense to sort of be guided in that way, unless you're really confident about going freelance by yourself. Also, you get paid holiday and stuff, which is nice.
Yeah. And sometimes benefits.
Yeah, true. In the company I work for, you got a day off on your birthday. Which is
that's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess again it totally depends on the agency and where you live. For me, because of where I live, I couldn't really apply for an agency at all. So I would have probably if I had lived close as well.
Yeah, I think it all depends on the personal circumstances. When you have the opportunity to work in-house, I think it's a good choice. I think it's a good choice because you'll get to see how the company works from the inside. You'll get to learn about project management. You get to learn about subordination. You'll get to learn about clients, communication, working in a team with other people, and those are valuable skills that will be very helpful if when you start building your own business. If you decide to go freelance. I think everything I learned when I was working in-house helped me a lot when I just switched to freelancing. So yeah, I always recommend everyone who's just starting out to try and find something in-house, because this is, first of all, it's stability, like Elena says, and it's a great experience which will definitely be beneficial along the way.
There's a question from Joanna. She asks me if I tell my agency that I don't see the point of using the cat tool in certain circumstances, and whether I think they understand my point of view. Well, the agency I was referring to earlier, they actually have two cat tools. They're both online. One is a paid cat tool that they provide for us free access to. The second one is their proprietary cat tool, which is not really good. And I don't enjoy using it.
I hope they're not watching it.
I don't think so, but actually the PMs know that I don't really like that. That other cat tool. We have good relationship with project managers, as I told you.
That's great.
Yeah, it is. So the thing is that the project I was talking about, the cat tool doesn't interfere with it. Let's put it that way. So the segments are the text is segmented in a nice way, and it doesn't interfere much with the translation flow. So I just don't see the point of telling them that, because I don't mind using it in those circumstances. But some time ago they asked me whether I would like to, what I think about transitioning to their own proprietary cat tool for that same project. And I told them my opinion about it. I told them that that cat tool is a bit slow and some other drawbacks that I saw in it. And at the moment, I'm not transitioning there. So I would say that they have listen to my opinion. Well, at least it looks that way for the time being. I'm not sure how things will develop, but probably, yeah. I think they listen to it, and yeah, it's nice. I hope I answered your question, Joanna.
Yeah, I love when agencies or clients actually listen to the feedback of their freelancers and try to make them happy. I think it works both ways, because when you try to make freelancers happy, they will try to make you happy. And if you have a lot of people who are unhappy with your tool, you'll probably spend the most part of your day just answering annoying emails, like something like people having problems like this doesn't work, or how do I log in, or how do I open a project, etc., etc. So it just will create a chaos in your mailbox.
Yeah.
So I think listening to freelancers can go a long way.
And it also makes sense to listen to translators, because we are the ones who are using those tools the most. So we have the most experience with them, not the project managers and not the company management at all. So yeah, it makes sense to listen to us when we express our opinions, and especially when we are asked to express our opinions. So it was great.
Yes.
Shall we take the next question?
Yeah, I just wanted to read a question by Paige Dagger. I promise I'm going to read this question, and I think Paige already left us. She said it somewhere in the chat that she only have 45 minutes, but once we answer it, she'll receive an email reminder about the answer, and she'll be able to watch the answer. So, okay, Paige asks, as translators, what are some do's and don'ts for us to make PMs love us?
Do's and don'ts. I think you should be clear on instructions and on your invoice and on your PO and all bits of paper. Do you try and put yourself in other people's shoes sometimes, as we've been talking about, trying to work out what's going on at the other end can really help. That works both ways. And do be honest. I think it doesn't really help either party if you're worried about what the other person might say. You can be honest without sort of being mean about it. If your invoice isn't signed off because you're short-staffed or whatever, don't just make up. Don't avoid the email. Don't just make something up as well. I think everyone appreciates honesty. Don't be a jerk, like the people I talked about.
Rule number one, I guess.
Don't be afraid to ask questions as well. I sometimes ask so many questions before I even started the translation. Right, sorry, it's me again. But they've always said, don't be sorry, because it's best that everyone's clear on everything before you get started. And I think a lot of people are quite scared about looking stupid. I am sometimes too, but yeah, it's better than sort of guessing what the other person might be thinking or expecting. So, yeah. Have you got any?
I think those are very good suggestions, and just being nice. I think it's the key to your translation managers falling in love with you. Yeah. Be nice, timely, punctual, and polite.
Definitely, it is possible.
And maybe just doing some extra work, like asking questions, like you said, or I don't know. Sometimes, as a translator, you can spot some typos in the original text, and then you point out to that clients actually appreciate this. So those extra steps, they help build trust, and project managers, they tend to remember people who are willing to do some extra work and who really care about the clients. Doesn't matter if it's just a project manager or an actual end client. So
yeah, these are the people you want to hear from again.
Elena, do you want to read the next question from Alexandra?
Which one? Okay, I'll start with the last question here, because the first question asked by Alexander is a bit longer one, I think. So is it a
but
good...
it's an interesting one.
So which one would you like me to read first? Let's
We're gonna answer them both.
Okay, yeah, sure. Is it a good idea to send feedback for the translations I get to review, proofread? Do project managers find it useful? My project manager likes it that way, but I believe sometimes it causes trouble to the translator I review, proof. Great question.
Yeah, I always send feedback. I don't if I've been asked or not, actually. I don't think you have to be sort of, you're not out to sort of be vindictive about it. You're just, it's just feedback, and it's what it is. I think, yeah, I've proofread some horrible translations in my time, and I think it is important that the PM knows whatever the reason is. Sometimes it's because the deadline was too short, and so the translator might not have had time to, read through it properly, and that saves proofreading time if they have had time to translate it properly. So, yeah, I think it's okay. Do either of you send feedback?
Yeah, I think feedback is important. Just like you said, just don't be very vindictive about it, or try to make the translator look bad. Just try to stay calm and be analytical. I think proofreading is the art of its own, and providing appropriate feedback is a very difficult skill that you have to develop over the years. Sometimes you might come across as if you're trying to get back at this translator or just steal his job. The good feedback actually is when you're trying to stay analytical, you're trying to explain how everything looks on paper, and point out to all the mistakes and how they can be fixed or something like that. I think that's the best kind of feedback, rather than saying that the translation is crap.
Yeah, you should stop that. And equally, I say when the translation was good as well, and sometimes they are.
Yeah, and good feedback is also appreciated, because sometimes translation can be splendid, can be good, can be amazing. So you should always try to praise your colleague for doing a great job, because it works both ways.
But then I never know if it does actually get back to the translator. That's something I never.
Yeah. Sometimes this feedback, it just stays with the manager, but well, sometimes they do send feedback. Like I received a couple of times feedback from project managers who said that the client was happy with the quality, or the reviewer was happy with the quality, when in those cases when clients could assess the quality of my translation in they spoke Russian. Yeah, so receiving this feedback is very exciting for a translator.
Yeah.
I tend to send feedback only for some very poor translations or for some really good translations, now that I think about it. So I think it's very important, like you said, Natalie, it's very important not to be vindictive and not to be mean to the other translator. It's sometimes difficult for me, because a poor translation usually means that I have to spend a lot of time on sometimes rewriting that text. And while I usually get paid for more hours for the actual number of hours that I spent on that proofreading task, it's still less than if I had done the translation myself. And it's also a much less pleasurable experience, because I like translating more than proofreading, especially when it's when I get to proofread a bad translation. So it is difficult to be mean, but I do my best, and I always explain. I don't just write that translation is crap. I always explain why I think it's crap. So yeah, and it's also very nice. I have gotten a couple of times I've gotten some feedback from the reviewer by the PMs, of course, and it was really nice when they said that they were impressed with the quality of the translation. So I always try to pay forward or pay back, so that other translators could also enjoy some nice feedback, which can make it interesting to.
Yeah, so Alexandra, thank you so much for a couple of questions. I'm just going to read the last question by Alexandra. I think it's a very interesting question. Question about the rates, how they fare. I'm just going to read the whole thing if you guys don't mind. I'm not planning to make a fuss out of it, but considering your experience as a PM, considering that the SC is the one dealing with the client, and considering that the translation goes to another revisor, proofreader, after the translation is done, do you think that the way the rates are established is correct? Are they fair?
Yeah, it does totally depend on the agency. I think some agencies are quite fair and some are really not. I guess the whole reason an end client has come to an agency is because they want them to just take care of everything for them. So finding a translator, finding a proofreader, putting it into loads of different languages, and that's not necessarily something we could do ourselves as individuals. So that's how they get away with charging extra on top. In my experience, what's quite difficult is that a lot of agencies are under pressure to show the client that they're trying to make savings for them and that it's worth them going through that agency. So that's why they're constantly trying to squeeze the end freelancer, which is really annoying. But yeah, again, it depends on the agency as to what their sort of profit margins are and whether that is fair or not.
Yeah, I think the problem with, if you talk about agencies, not actually a problem. It's how it works. They're running a business, and in business, you tend to minimize your expenses at all costs. And the cost of hiring freelancers is probably the largest expense of an agency because it's your main workforce. So trying to minimize those expenses is probably the safest or the easiest way for a business to generate more revenue for themselves, and that's why why they do it. But there's a big difference between agencies who are operated by business owners and people who has no relationship with translation industry whatsoever. They majored in business and they figured they start a business and they have no idea what translation is or who translators are. Those kind of agencies, they tend to put a lot of pressure on freelancers because they're operating a business, so they have a business model. They need to generate as much revenue as possible, and squeezing everything out of the freelancers is the most obvious and the easiest way for them to be more profitable. But there are good agencies, like you said, like agencies who are run by former translators who decided that they would create their own agency and work with fellow translators. And these agencies, they tend to be much smaller. They have very small teams. They probably don't even have project managers, and the owner is, in this case, a project manager who communicates with end clients and work with translators directly. And in this case, the owners, they understand our pains because they used to be translators. Many of them, they still translate and just have other people do other languages. So it all depends on the agency and who's it run by. If I look at my clients right now, agency clients right now, I think almost all of them are run by fellow translators who at one point they decided that they want to go bigger, and they all put a very small margin. So, for example, if I get paid 12 cents, they pay 14. The end client pays 14 or 15 cents, so they only gain like 3 cents. I think it's very fair.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, you go, Elena.
I agree with almost everything you said, except for one thing. You said that trying to squeeze out freelance translators is a safe way to get more margin. I think it's the least safe way.
Not the very safe.
Because I think that paying translators, well, peanuts, is getting you will only get the quality that can be provided by monkeys. Yeah. And probably not only because translators or not because translators are bad, but because working for peanuts means that you have to take on a lot of work, and you have less time for professional development, you have less time for proofreading your translations, you have less time for providing the quality you would be able to provide if you charged more. And so the agencies that go that way, they're actually setting themselves up for a disaster at some point in the future, because all translators at some point will either provide low quality work, or will go somewhere else where they can earn more money and get more fair rates. So I think it's the least safe way for those agencies. And yeah, I think the only reason why they do it is because, like you, Dmitry, said, they are not translators themselves and they don't understand how it all works. And they, for some reason, they think that translators are some kind of machines that can do some huge amounts of work to earn their living, and they just don't understand that it doesn't work that way.
Enough,
yeah, but
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, funnily enough, in the agency I worked for, obviously they'd keep trying to squeeze the freelancer end, because it's just the easiest one to do than actually lay off people who physically are employed there. But if an end client really loves one of the freelancers, they don't mind paying a bit more to keep them, because they'd rather stay with someone that they know and trust the work of than try a new, cheaper person who might not be as good. But again, it depends on the end client as well, and I find it depends on the country and location of the client too.
It does.
Yeah, I think both agencies, they are very skillful at finding the balance between squeezing freelancers and figuring out who can provide the best quality for less money. A lot of project managers have that skill. It's sad, but I mean, it's business. It's business, and there is no such notion as fair in business. It's just business. Companies try to make money, and you can't blame them for that. All you can do is just either move to another company, or try to increase your rates and find better clients. That's all it really takes.
That's true.
All right, we are past the 1 hour mark, and we are having such a lovely conversation. I'm really grateful for all the questions. I think we've been mostly answering questions from our audience. I think it's awesome, even though there are not as many people watching us today, but still it's great to have a very engaged conversation, and I'm really grateful for all the questions, and I hope that our answers help you guys figure something out. Natalie, can you please add some final words or something you would like to say about working as a freelancer and versus working as a project manager? Some final notes.
Final words. Yeah, sometimes one role is better suited for different people, but we're both sort of aiming at the same objective, to please the end client, so we should all be friends.
Have we lost Natalie?
Yes. Okay, what Natalie was trying to say, that we just have to be friendly, and just remember that customer service is always important, and it's the main thing that helps you move your business forward. Too bad that we can have Natalie to say some final words. But it's internet, and stuff like this happens during our live conversation, unfortunately. I would like to thank Natalie for joining us, even though I don't know if she'll be able to jump back in to say bye. Natalie, if you're hearing this, it was a really fun conversation. So thank you so much for joining. Thanks everyone for watching, and of course, as always, final reminder: please check out the website of our sponsor. You can push the green button below, or you can go to the first link in the description of this video. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.